For this session, we're going to look at building a typical slow groove, a type of chill out drum loop. Now, saying that, I suppose I better clarify myself a little there, because obviously chill out can range from loops with a swing or jazzy feel to a strict 4/4 pattern, pretty similar to the loop we programmed in the last session, just tending to use softer tones and a slower tempo. So what we're going to do here is we're going to write a slow, chilled out loop that's more aimed towards dance than swingy jazz. But the reason for that is because I want to use it to introduce you to a concept known as ambiguous displacement. Now, as strange as it sounds, it's another fundamental technique that you must learn to grasp if you're writing or you plan to write more than clubhouse or trance like we did in the last session. You'll find that this kind of displacement plays a major role in quite a large number of genres, ranging all the way from the slow, simple grooves of chill out and lo-fi, and all the way up to faster genres such as tech house, minimal and techno. Tech house and minimal techno, they do employ this, but they also employ more techniques, and we will cover them in a later session. So for this session, all we want to do is write a small chilled out loop, and it's just for the sole reason to introduce you to the concept of this ambiguous displacement. So what is it? Well, it's like the name says, it's programming some rhythmic patterns that work against the main beat or the tactus of the music. A type of polyrhythm, but not quite a polyrhythm. You see, some forms of chill out music use a fairly simple drum rhythm because the energy of the music doesn't lie with the drums. It tends to lie with the long strings, the pads and the melodies that run over the top. I mean, in fact, these melodies and pads define the music so much more than the drums that it's possible to write chill out without including any drums whatsoever. I believe it was Thrill Seekers with Synesthesia. They did a chill out mix that didn't have any drums in it whatsoever, and really, really good mix. Anyway, because the drums are so simple, what we need to do is we need to inject some kind of excitement into them, otherwise they'll tend to do little more than keep the tempo. So what we need to do is, in the same way that we used a modulated filter in the previous session to generate this subliminal feeling, this subliminal pulse, when the loop becomes simpler, we need to use that and more. We need to put more production into it, and the perfect way to do this is by using this ambiguous displacement. So I think the best way I can explain this actually is show you how it works. So what we'll do is we'll knock down a quick chill out rhythm. Now, as you can see, it's we're back in a drum template again in Logic. I've laid down all the tracks again, and all of them are just feeding out to Ultra Beat. Although you'll have noticed that I've now included a couple of claps as well, because chill out loops do tend to use a bit of claps. So I thought I'd put them in. We may not use them. We'll see how it goes. What we'll do is we've set the tempo at 103 already, so I'm just going to knock in a 4/4 rhythm here. Just ooh. Very chill out there. It's a bit harsh, that. We'll start playback, and we'll do what we did before, and we'll just run up and see if we can find a better timbre than that. That's quite nice. Now, the thing with chill out is you need to avoid fast transients, because transients can add an urgency to a music, and even though we're only running at 103 BPM down here, we don't want to make the beat sound too urgent. It's got to relax. So what we'll do is we'll just take the attack off that by using the SPL transient designer. We can just take a little bit of the attack off and make it sound a little bit better. That sounds a little bit more relaxed. I think we'll just bring it back a little. It's a bit more relaxed there. It's sounding a little bit better. What we'll do is we'll augment that with a snare, and we'll throw the snare obviously again on 2 and 4s. Oh, that's not bad. Like something a bit better. I think what we'll do, we'll leave that. We'll try clap instead. They all sounded a bit too rough. So we'll try clap on 2 and 4. I think that sounded a bit better than a snare. Snare's a bit too heavy. We'll also take the transient down on that as well. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to avoid basically our open hats and our closed hats, because what I want to do, I think I'm going to use them to create our ambiguity. So we'll skip them, and I think we'll go straight down to shakers. What we'll do is we'll knock in some kind of shaker rhythm in there. So that's, I don't think we really want to go because if we threw them in all the way along there like that, we tend to add an urgency to the rhythm that you can. It all sounds a little bit urgent there. So what we'll do, we'll take some out and we'll try and. Sounding a bit better for a rhythm, but I'm still not too keen on the tom of that one. Oh, that's not bad. Quite like that one. I think what I'll do is we'll add some echo bar to that. Unsurprisingly, I don't think I need to really describe what I'm doing here now, because I'm sure you've realised how good echo bar is at adding that, just that little bit of feeling to it. Slide down a bit, give it a bit more feedback. I think we'll just use the SPL transient design just to set the front attack off them. I think they're a bit too sustain down a little bit. You can hear the difference it makes there. It's so much easier and quicker than envelopes, I feel. And what we'll do now is we'll also add some of our modulation here, just to give it that little bit of extra energy. Just because we are using another technique here doesn't mean that we should miss out on the techniques we've discussed before. We do build upon techniques. So what we'll do is we'll use bandpass for that. We don't want any of the bottom ending. Sync it again. Again, we'll just offset this slightly, and then we'll just we don't want to make it too obvious. Okay, that's quite a nice groove there. Perhaps we may need these snares back, but not that particular sound. Now that seems to augment this clap quite well. Let's bring the attack of this clap up a little. Claps and snares generally always benefit from a bit of reverb. So I think what we'll do is we'll throw a bit of reverb on them, but obviously not that much. For quite a small room there. We just need to knock off the end of that, I think. What we'll do is we'll use a noise gate just to remove the back end of that. Say about there. And then what we'll do is we'll take the sustain up a little and just sounding quite well. That what we're doing is we're augmenting 2 and 4, which slows the rhythm down a little bit further, because we can only really hear 2 and 4 rather than 1, 2, 3, 4. That's sounding quite well, that. So I can hear that. I can hear a clap at the end, like a double clap just at the very end of that. What we'll do is we'll get them in here. Snare down a little. We'll use some modulation on this, I think. We'll have to be quite quick with this. Set it to the rhythm. It's about half note because they're quite close together there. That'll do. It's not too bad at all. I'll just take the front off then with the SPL again. There's a transient designer on there. Move those shakers up there just so I don't lose where I want to here. So I know that I suppose I can get rid of them now. I think we're going to need more snares in there. Well, basically, I think that's fine for our basic loop there. It's sounding well. It's all tying together. I mean, chill out loops aren't particularly complicated anyway. We don't want to get too complicated with this. It's quite chilled out, that. So what we'll do now is we'll introduce our ambiguous displacement effect, and one of the quickest ways and the easiest ways to introduce this effect is by manipulating the position of the open hats and the closed hats, which is why at the beginning I left these out. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to mute these off like that, and then what we'll do is I think we'll start with an open hat, and what we'll do is we'll just knock an open hat in off slightly off the beat. So for example, what we'll do is we'll get that there, but I think we'll knock it so it's just occurring. You see that it's not quite occurring on any beat or any even amount there. For example, we're not trying it on 2, 4. We're not hitting it on a beat, we're hitting it just before a beat there. It's a bit housey, that sound now, so I think we'll tune it up. After quite a smooth sound with this, really. Ooh. That's quite nice. It's quite a smooth sound. It's nothing too heavy. I think we'll run the transient designer over that. I mean, you're probably getting an idea now just how important this transient designer is for working with drum loops. That sounds alright, I think. We'll drop in now. I think what we'll do, we're going for a closed hat. And what we want to do now is we want to program this closed hat. The reason I've muted these now is that we can program this closed hat to fit with this open hat here, which is out of time, which means that these hats will be out of time, but in time with this, and the two will augment themselves. So what we'll do is we'll knock in... obviously not notes that long. Now obviously if I knocked in notes all the way along here, we wouldn't get the effect we're after because there's no rhythm to it. We've also got to make a rhythm. So what we'll do is we'll construct a rhythm. We'll set that line there. I'm going to have to change that sound. I can't really get an idea with that. That's quite nice. That's quite a nice rhythm. I think what we'll do is I think we'll apply for some modulation to those. Just a very small amount, I think. Let's get that up to rhythm. Lock it to the beat. Go on half now. I think. Edit that again. Offset it slightly, just so we create a slight offset in here. Yeah, I like that. We need to set the front off those hats so they're a bit. I'm going to turn the sustain up a little. Well, they're actually sounding quite well together there. It's producing quite a nice rhythm there. Now, you may not actually realise this at the moment, but your mind is automatically already imposing a non-existent beat onto this rhythm. Basically, it's a natural occurrence and something we can't avoid. So what we're going to do, we're going to carry out an incredibly important scientific experiment here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lights off. Don't panic, it's not a problem with the DVD, I've just switched the lights off. Can you hear those two rhythms working together? Just listen to the rhythms. Did you feel that? Did you get that reaction? All of a sudden, the timing seems to go out somewhere. Now, that's what rhythmical ambiguity is. It's rhythmic dissonance. You struggled, just for them few seconds when that first started, you probably struggled determining where the pulse, the tactus was. And that's absolutely imperative for some styles of dance music, as I mentioned before. If you listen to that now, you can think, well, what's holding the beat there? Are the open and closed hats on the right beat, or is the tactus holding the beat there? What's right? Now, we're automatically drawn to the tactus there, so we're going to say, well, the hi-hats are out. But irregardless, you can feel the dissonance in the rhythm there. There's something not right. Now, you probably also sat there thinking, this sounds bloody terrible. Why would we want to do something like this? Well, the reason we want to do something like this is if we introduce these other instruments, just have a listen. Do they sound out of time now? Or does the music now have a much more interesting edge that's something that could easily maintain a sustained listening for longer than if we took our ambiguous part out? For example, I'll take these out now. I think what I will do first, I'll do a bit of a clean up because I'm going to end up getting lost here. Yeah, just delete it. Right. Oh. Right. So what we'll do is we'll take our two ambiguous parts out now. Oops. There's nothing in that one. Well, I mean, it sounds okay there, but perhaps a bit plain. Even though we have our little bit of modulation still sat in there, a little bit of subliminal modulation, it's certainly adding something to the beat, and if we took that away, this beat would be absolutely terrible. But the ambiguity, our dissonance, brings something more to it, so I'll just bring that back in. And there you go. That's what ambiguous displacement does to a mix. You can obviously hear that. Of course, you should feel free to experiment on this principle further. I've only done this as a simple example, but it's up to you to take it a lot further. But saying that, you must exercise some caution on the number of instruments that you decide to make ambiguous. Generally, I've always found that the ambiguity produces the best results when it's used on high frequency instruments such as a couple of hats, and always trying to ensure that the number of instruments creating the ambiguity is less than the number of instruments running along with the pulse or the tactus of the record. I mean, of course, that's just me. I have found that if you make too many instruments ambiguous, there's too much of a fight and it doesn't really create a groove, it just creates a mess. But of course, push my ideas further, and because that's where the music of tomorrow comes from. Now, that was a very simple loop, and the whole purpose of this session has been to show the importance of not only modulation displacement there, but I hope it's shown the importance of both modulation and displacement when your rhythms are less complex. We've deliberately made this rhythm very, very, very simple, so we can show you how important displacement can be on simple rhythms. Now, of course, that kind of ambiguity can be used with more complex rhythms as well, but with a faster tempo, you find it's actually better to use something else, something called metrical dissonance, rather than the ambiguous displacement we've done here. So what we'll do is, I think we'll investigate that next. And in the next session, what we'll do is we'll build a kind of a progressive house, progressive trance loop, which is obviously a bit faster than 103 BPM. And we'll show the uses of metrical dissonance in that.